folks, welcome back. I hope you like my new introduction. I did the drawing myself, believe it or not. And instead of jumping in front of the camera, I just set my tripod up with my cell phone on it, pointed out the window, so instead of watching me, you can watch the snowstorm that we're getting. The last predictions were 16 to 21 inches of snow and anywhere between 45 to 55 mile an hour gusts. And this is fluffy snow because it's just about 4 degrees outside with the wind chill. I believe it said -6. It was a little cold doing chores this morning, but they got done. I put the fresh water inside the coop and kept the birds closed in for today. So years ago, the first time I heard the phrase "shit hit the fan," I was about 10 years old, and it was a joke told to my father. As a 10-year-old, I did not understand the joke, but I always remembered the phrase. So one day I was doing some research and a video option came up, and I thought I read pepper garden, as in green pepper. Well, apparently I didn't pay much attention, or I didn't have my glasses on, because watching the video I kept waiting for a pepper garden, and as I got into it I realized that the video was called Prepper Garden, and they were talking about all kinds of scenarios, anything from doomsday to an EMP striking, economic collapse. They went into all these different scenarios. Well, I didn't even know what an EMP was, so I had to research that. So I did a lot of researching to find out that a prepper, I am a practical prepper due to the nature of how I live here. So today I am going to talk about a little poll, a little survey that I did on my Facebook page. And a handful of people participated. Most of them were Mainers. Most of them were, I would say, between the ages of 25 and 80, I think. 70s at least. And I asked a few questions because somebody brought it to my attention. I had a little conversation with somebody one day that, what I thought of the current situation. Do you think there's going to be an economic collapse? Do you think everybody should, start prepping and stocking food? And we had a nice conversation. And it got me to thinking, I hadn't thought that deep into much because it's really busy running a homestead here by yourself. So I figured I would get on my Facebook page and just ask the same questions this gentleman asked me. And I was really, really surprised how like-minded a lot of us are. We're just country folk here. Maine is full of country folk, but there's country folk clear across the country. So one of the questions, which is what this video is about, if something happened right now, right here, today, would you survive being thrown back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, before computers, before anything electronic? And would you survive? So a few people thought that they had enough food on hand. They had the skills needed to garden, to foraging, to hunting, to trapping, fishing for their food. So then I asked, what happened if it happened in the winter? And all of a sudden you found yourself without electricity, without food. Maybe something happened to your food. Maybe you weren't prepared and didn't have a pantry full of food. Would you survive? Just about 95%, most answers no, that they would have to rely on others. Some said that they could fill their bellies on what they could eat from the woods in the winter. An equal amount stated that they would, I'm reading my notes here, stated they knew enough to be able to find food to eat, but not enough to fill their bellies. Half of those admitted they wouldn't know where to start or what was edible to eat. Some stated they could find something to eat, but the diet change would cause gastro issues. Now, my point on the whole thing is I could probably find enough to eat, but would it be worth what I found to harvest it in the wintertime? Now, yesterday I was getting ready for this storm, and I was getting tired because I have not been feeling well. And I said, okay, if something happened right here, right now, and for some reason I did not have food in the house, and there was a storm coming, not feeling well, could I find what I needed to eat within 100 yards of my house? So I went walking. I thought about it, and I went walking, and here's a little video of what I found. If you grow Jerusalem artichokes and you find yourself in a spot in your life where you need food and it's winter, I'm gonna show you that Jerusalem artichokes are edible year-round, even under the snow. But the only problem with that is if you've had cold weather like we've had, and you dig under the snow and the ice, and that's frozen solid down there. So the Jerusalem artichokes are good if you can get a spading fork and a little bit of luck and a lot of muscle. You might be able to harvest Jerusalem artichokes. But my question is, how much energy, if you were hungry, how much energy would it take, or how much energy would you consume to get the artichokes you need for staying healthy? That's the question. That's the question. Would it be worth all the energy spent, or would you consume up all the energy trying to get the food that you need? That's the part about winter, when it's so cold out in the northern climate. It can be done. It can be done, but I'm afraid you would expend too much energy for what the plant will give you for food. But if you planned ahead of time and you thought something may happen, if you laid mulch down, a bunch of leaves down, spread out a bale of hay or two, then all you'd have to do is remove that, and then you could gain access to the tubers much easier, and then it would definitely be worth the hassle. Jerusalem artichokes you can dig them up, and as long as as you store them in a cool, dark place. But artichokes, in order to last any time at all, need moisture. The best place to store artichokes, like any other root, is in moist sand or in like a baggie in like the bottom of your refrigerator. They do not store for a long time. They may store up to 3 to 6 months. Now I am walking out onto the bog. I just found some shell ice. To where I know there are low bush cranberries. Now right here where I am standing, right here, if you were hungry and you needed some food, through this snow, if you knew exactly where the patch was, and I do here, you could, same with the artichokes, you could remove the snow, dig down through the ice, and get some frozen cranberries. And again, how much energy would you be using on getting those few cranberries? Is it worth it? Is it worth the energy? So, that's the debate, and you can't mulch this out here. You can't really protect this harvest. You would have to work awfully hard for a handful of cranberries. What you could do, but you can harvest them and then you can dry them and keep them, nice and dry in a cool place, so you can have them if something happens and you need that vitamin C and that nutrition. And here is, hopness. Hopness is a windy plant that'll attach itself to blades of grass, trees, bushes, anything around it. It likes to grow on sides of streams. It likes to grow around hazelnut bushes. But again, I have this grown in a container, and see, that's frozen solid in there, but it is in a tub. So if times really got hard, I could take a pry bar and I could raise that tub and either roll it or put it on some sort of sled and bring it back to where I can get it warm and thawed. And then there are tubers in there about the size of a real small potato, and they are like a potato, and you can eat them year round if you can get them in the winter. But again, it's very important to know where you can access this food if you need it. You need to know its exact location, and then either mulch it so it doesn't freeze up, so you can get it in the winter when everything is frozen. But if you're digging that in the wild and you know exactly where it is and you haven't put mulch over it in the late fall, is it going to be worth the effort and the energy spent on a handful of tubers? So it is very wise to plan ahead, because one never ever knows. The best thing would be to harvest it when it's ready and store it the best you can, either in a root cellar or a spare refrigerator or someplace. Hopness does store pretty good in a root cellar, as any root vegetable stored away, either in the bottom of your refrigerator in the crisper or in a root cellar, it needs to stay moist. So just like you would carrots and beets, you would put them in, layer them in damp sand and kept cool. If you find yourself needing some nourishment in the wintertime and you just can't get anywhere to buy anything, if you want tea, pine needle tea, a lot of people know about pine needle tea right there. That has a lot of vitamin C in it. As a kid, I did not like it. As an adult, I really enjoy it, especially if you add a little honey to it and a little ginger. But pine needle tea, spruce tea, the tips of the spruce have a lot of vitamin C in it, and it's also an antiseptic. You can make a tea out of it. You can take the pitch and put it on a wound and then wrap it. It'll keep it clean, but you don't even need to wrap it. It acts as a band-aid, but it's going to be sticky. Put the pitch on a wound. It'll help close that wound, much like a butterfly band-aid, and it'll keep it from getting infected. And it acts like basically like stitches. But then you take a piece of cloth or a band-aid or something and put it over that, because the pitch does remain sticky. So the purpose of the wrap is to keep it, from you from sticking to everything. So that's what I found within 100 yards. This time of year, I am talking the end of January in Maine. This is what I found that I had edible to eat within 100 yards from my home. So, do I believe in stocking up for anything that may come my way? So I make sure that I have food to eat, that I have a way to draw some water, to filter that water if I need to, if something happened to my well, if my pump went. Do I have the firewood to keep warm? Do I have a means to tend to my birds, feeding my birds, staying warm while doing those chores without getting too fatigued, because I have been quite sick? I believe in having everything on hand for what I need for whatever happens. Now, how long I could sustain that way, I would have to do inventory. I would say that I would fare a little bit better than most, because I do raise my own meat, and I do raise a fairly sized garden for a single person. But that is a year's worth of food that I put up. So I know I have at least a year's worth of food easily. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people go 2 or 3 days. They can go maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Some can go 2 or 3 months. And others may be able to go 2 or 3 years. So if something should happen in the middle of winter and you find yourself without food, do you have the knowledge and the skills to go out and get your food? Do you know what would be worth the harvest? Would it be worth it to chisel away a foot of ice to get so you can fish, or to find cranberries, or to dig through 2 feet of snow or a foot of snow? And this is where it comes to how important it is to know your surroundings, what plants are edible, what plants are not edible, where they can be found, and take a mental note. So if you need that food and you need to get it in the dead of winter, and you had no other choice but to use that energy up to have those few cranberries, to have those couple of tubers, just to satisfy the gnawing of the belly of hunger, then you would know exactly where to go, exactly what spot, and the materials you would need to gather that food. So there's several parts to these videos, but this is the number one, and hope you come back.